All right, everyone, ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that's probably on your kitchen table right now, salt. But this isn't just about, shaking it on your food. We're going way back in time, talking evolution, even a little bit of family history in here. And to guide us, we've got this super interesting article from a cardiology clinic's blog. What caught my eye was that it's actually written by the doctor who runs the clinic. So we're getting like the real deal, practical experience mixed with the science, which I always love.
Yeah, that firsthand perspective is invaluable.
Okay, so let's jump right in. I'm sure you've heard all about those fancy salts, right? Pink Himalayan, sea salt with these exotic names. They sound so much healthier. Are they really any better for you than plain old table salt?
Well, that's where things get interesting. This article dives right into that myth. It's all about marketing, really. See, people naturally gravitate towards things that sound natural or pure, and marketers know that. But here's the truth. Whether it's pink, gray, or from some ancient sea, it's mostly sodium chloride, just like the stuff in that round container in your pantry.
Right, good old NaCl.
Exactly. They might have tiny amounts of other minerals, sure, but the impact on our health, pretty insignificant.
Okay, so myth busted. Sometimes the simplest answer really is the right one. But that brings us to sodium itself, which is, of course, the main thing we're concerned about health-wise. Now, the World Health Organization, they recommend no more than 2,000 milligrams of sodium daily. That's about a teaspoon of salt, right?
Right, that's the general guideline.
Seems pretty straightforward, right? But our doctor author, they bring up a really interesting point. They argue that drastically cutting back on salt might not be the best move for everyone. Like, think about athletes or people who work outdoors in the heat. They're losing a ton of sodium through sweat.
Absolutely.
So they might need more than that recommended amount just to keep their electrolytes balanced.
Exactly. It's about replacing what you're losing.
And then there are certain medical conditions where a super low sodium diet could actually be harmful.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The article talks about how historically salt wasn't always so easy to come by. They use the example of sub-Saharan Africa. Over thousands of years, people living there may have developed genetic adaptations to actually thrive on less salt.
Isn't that interesting?
It's like our bodies are still wired for a time when salt was a precious commodity, especially in certain parts of the world.
Precisely. And those adaptations might be more common than we realize, especially considering the huge migrations out of Africa throughout human history.
It's like we're carrying around these ancient survival mechanisms in our DNA.
Exactly. And that's just the beginning.
The article even mentioned a specific gene variant. It's found in people of African descent, and it seems to help their bodies hold on to salt more effectively.
Oh, absolutely. That's a perfect example of how our evolutionary past is still present in our genes. It challenges the way we think about health problems today, like high blood pressure, for instance. What we see as a problem now might have actually been an advantage back then.
Right, like a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder what else our bodies are trying to tell us. But okay, so we've got these ancient genes trying to navigate our modern world. Let's talk about what happens when we do have too much salt in our diets, specifically how it affects our hearts.
Yeah, that's a big one. The article delves into this idea of programming. It's this concept that our early experiences, especially what we eat as kids, can have long-term consequences. And when it comes to salt, high intake early on can actually program the body to favor higher blood pressure later in life.
Wow, so our bodies are kind of like setting the stage early on.
In a way, yes. And it's not just about hitting those really high blood pressure numbers either.
Right, I remember that from the article. It's about the subtle day-to-day elevations that can cause problems over time.
Exactly. It's like this constant low-grade strain.
Yeah.
The doctor uses this phrase, pressure loading.
Okay, pressure loading. I like that.
It really captures it. Imagine your heart is an engine, right? Pumping blood continuously. With even slightly elevated pressure, that engine has to work harder with each beat. And over decades, that extra effort takes a toll. The heart muscle can stiffen up, become less efficient.
And that can eventually lead to heart failure, even if you haven't had those scary sky-high blood pressure readings.
Exactly. It's about the long game. And that's where our everyday choices about diet and lifestyle really come into play.
So after all that, I'm guessing we shouldn't be ditching our salt shakers just yet.
Well, it's tempting to go for the easy answer, right? But with health, it's really that simple.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's not as easy as just saying salt is bad or salt is good.
Exactly. The article really drives home this point about personalized health.
Which makes sense with everything we've been talking about.
Mm.
Our genes, our lifestyles, even where our ancestors lived, it all plays a role. So where do we even start? What should we be thinking about when it comes to our own salt intake?
Well, one of the biggest things is family history. If you've got high blood pressure, stroke, heart failure, that kind of thing, running in your family, it's definitely something to be more aware of.
It's like those genetic clues we talked about, right?
Exactly. And of course, knowing your current blood pressure is key. If it's on the higher side, that's a sign to check in with your doctor.
Right. They can help figure out what's right for you. Well, this has been eye-opening. Who knew salt could be so complex? From ancient migrations to how our hearts work, it's all connected.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, isn't it?
Yeah.
We get to uncover those hidden connections and understand the why behind the what.
Absolutely. And hopefully that empowers all of us to make healthier choices.
Exactly. But it does make you wonder, if salt is so individual, how do we move away from these general recommendations and towards an approach to health that's truly personalized for everyone?
That's a great question and a perfect note to leave our listeners with. Something to ponder. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and as always, keep diving deep.